It's the secure thumb drive, so by eaprotection.com. There is a fingerprint scanner on the top here. Other than that, it is just a normal 4 gig thumb drive, but you won't be able to access the data on this device unless you have the correct fingerprint to swipe when required to do so. So let's take a look at how this is used. First, we plug it into the back of a computer just like any normal USB flash drive. From there, we're going to take a look at what the software does.
Thank you for that presentation. Just one question I have. You indicate the hard drive was stored in a cabinet with a lock and only 2 people had access to that cabinet? Is that correct?
Yes, we confirm that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll open it to a round of questioning. We'll start with Ms. Moore. Go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're concerned that 500,000 Canadians have lost their personal information. This is very serious.
It's just another example of the government's complete lack of respect for our personal information. We've seen a failure to update basic privacy laws that are supposed to be updated. And in the Privacy Commissioner's report to Parliament last year, she indicated that there has been over a 300% rise in privacy breaches. That's obviously the ensemble of all the ministerial departments. Last year in her report, her 2011-2012 report, she reported 80 data breaches within government departments, which is a record high. So for me, I'm looking at this and I really see a systematic problem. Now, I was wondering if you can answer me how many of those 80 reported data breaches were from HRSDC?
I believe, subject to your confirmation, Ron, it's 19, which is down a small but to us important 2 from the previous year.
I personally consider 19 data breaches as being a quite high number in a year.
We regard that as something to be brought to 0 and maintained at 0 if at all possible.
Very happy to hear that. Now, the Privacy Act actually doesn't make it mandatory for departments to report breaches to the Privacy Commissioner. So you're saying 19 breaches were reported. How many weren't reported?
We do have effectively a threshold which takes into account the nature, the seriousness, the ability to contain a breach of any kind very quickly. There are from time to time incidents of that nature, and if we become aware of them, we move very quickly to contain it. But that threshold of informing the Privacy Commissioner is not a high threshold. We are frequently in touch with the Privacy Commissioner with respect to our practices. We take advice from the Privacy Commissioner. In this situation, we have throughout the circumstance been in touch with the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, taking advice and whether formally given under their terms of reference or counsel or practical direction. So if an incident occurs and it is of a small scale and readily containable, we may not in that case inform the Privacy Commissioner.
Okay, so you're saying that there are data breaches that have happened but have not been reported. Do you have a record of this, and can this be made public to the committee?
Borg, if I might, now I know you've been sort of building towards you're going, but this committee are looking at 3 things. How did the breach of privacy occur? What steps were taken as a result of that? And what future course of action will be taken with respect to long-term solution of those that were particularly affected? And I know you're talking about things that may have happened in the past, and although they may have some relevancy in the general sense, but specifically this incident is of its own accord. So how did it occur? What steps have you taken as a result of that? What will you be doing for those affected is the area that we're dealing with. And so I'm giving you quite a bit of latitude, and I'm asking you to bring it closer to the point of reference. And if you don't do that, I'll rule it out of order. Okay.
Well, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chair, but I do think Canadians are quite preoccupied by the number of breaches that are happening within the government.
A specific one.
I understand. Thank you. Now, the Privacy Commissioner has begged, pretty much, the government to act and to include mandatory breach requirements, data breach requirements to government departments. Seeing as this is a data breach that happened, would you recommend that, basing yourself on what happened here, would you recommend that all departments be required to notify the Privacy Commissioner of data breaches?
If you feel you want to answer that, but I mean, it's not your responsibility in terms of what government might do for policy with respect to other departments. I mean, you're responsible for what happened administratively in this case. And so what may happen with respect to government policy, what the government might want to do or should do with respect to other departments is not part of this hearing. So
they went through a data breach. They went through something, and they can
deal with.
I think we're all interested in fixing the systematical problems here.
I don't want to get caught up in what government policy should be, what other departments should do. We're here with this department, with this specific breach, and that's what I want the questions to go to. And anything ruled outside of that, I will rule out of order.
With respect, Chair, I understand what the parameters are of our task before us here today, but what we are tasked to do is to look at the systems that are in place to protect the privacy of Canadians' personal information. It is appropriate to ask what those are in the Canadian government. That's what my colleague is asking. I think you have to give her that latitude.
I'm not going to debate that any further. I'm ruling any questions that go outside of what we're talking about here. Other departments will be out of order. You can answer if you wish in a general way, but specifically refer to your department.
Thank you, Chair. I would, I'll go as far as I can, given that advice I give the government is necessarily between my minister and me, and I can't speak for other departments, but I can point to...
We purposely did one bad test so you can see what this looks like.